this is Robert Taylor. Today I'm reviewing a Pear Audio Blue Aras Turntable. Okay, I'll get this out of the way up front. The Pear Audio Blue Aras Turntable retails for $15,000. Now what you get with this table is you get turntable, you get the Cornet 3 12-inch tone arm, and the outboard power supply speed controller. For this review, I used my DS Audio 003 optical cartridge along with the 003 matching phono energizer. Okay, this is the Pear Audio Blue Aras Turntable. I figured I'd do some show and tell versus just reading specs because this is such an unusual turntable. It's more interesting to see it than to hear about it. So first, starting at the bottom here, we have this black base, which is, I think, particle board. Doesn't sound too dense, but basically the components rest on this, and I haven't had any audible issues from it, so it works well. Then the next thing is we have this tone arm motor here, and this motor along with the platter and the tone arm all sit just on the base. They're not physically attached to this base. They sit on heavy duty rubber feet so they won't move, but you can literally pick up the motor, or you can pick up the platter or the tone arm and move them around. This motor is in a heavy duty aluminum chassis, so it's pretty quiet. You have this giant flywheel here. The lower end is for 33 1/3, the upper end is for 45, but that's only if you're using this table without the speed controller, but this table did come with the speed controller. If you're gonna physically plug this into the wall, then the 33 1/3 record you'd play with the belt here, and then you move the belt up to this higher platter if you were playing a 45. But since I have the speed controller, I don't have to move the belt. Then you have this thick, round rubber belt attached to the platter, and the platter sits on this nicely finished red plinth, and it sits raised slightly above the plinth itself. In between this plinth and the bottom of the platter, there's a little rubber, a piece of this type of material that basically adds drag to the platter, and there's a reason for that. More about that a little later. Also on this platter, you have these 4 thick rubber bands around the rim of the platter, and they're there for a purpose, and I will talk about that in a little bit as well. Then you have this heavy duty aluminum platter. I figure this is about 20 pounds or so, and it comes with this kind of generic felt mat. I mean, it's serviceable. I mean, if you want to experiment with different mats, have at it. Now, the tone arm housing is in this roughly 5-inch tall block of aluminum, and this tone arm is a unipivot design with some sort of special viscous fluid for dampening. Now, this arm is 12 inches. The arm tube is carbon fiber, but if you look at the head shell here, you'll notice that there's no tone arm lift on the right edge of on the head shell, and that's because the designer thinks that those tone arm lifts add undue weight on the end of the arm and causes the head shell to kind of want to be out of balance, so they don't believe in putting a tone arm lift on this. But you do have a cueing lever, and I would suggest that you keep the cueing lever extended to its full height always, because this tone arm rests on this little rail here, and this little rail does not have any type of a locking mechanism to hold the tone arm in place, so you can easily just kind of bump it like that and have the arm start sliding toward the platter. If the arm was lowered, then you risk damaging your cantilever and destroying your cartridge if it bumps into the platter or the mat or the record or whatever. So I always make sure I leave that lift at its height. And like I said, all of these components just sit on this table and you can move them around at will. So it's a good thing and a bad thing. If you had a bigger platter, you Or with this platter, you can move the components around. You can add a second tone arm to this. And if you decided to want to forego this platter and get something bigger, you could probably have space to add a third or a fourth tone arm. That's a good thing. Expandability, flexibility is nice. But that being said, if you have to move this table and you have to take these components off the top of this base and then move them and then reassemble the table, for lack of a better word, then you'd probably have to redo your entire cartridge setup again, because you could get lucky and get all the components in the exact same spot on this base, but I wouldn't count on it. So you probably have to redo your cartridge and tone arm setup to set the proper geometry for different positions on top of this base. This particular turntable came with the outboard speed controller, which is right here. And as you can see, it's just a simple black box, has 3 buttons. The first button is for 30, this is for 33 1/3. When you turn it on, you see the 33 1/3 come there, and then you can physically feel that the motor is running basically when you turn it on. Then you have 45 in the middle, and then you have off, which turns off the motor. And the display just has these 2 blue lines in the center of it and no number, so you know it's off.
The secret to a successful sound system is its cables. At Nordost, innovative design meets precision engineering to make cables that maximize the performance of your system. Hear what your components are capable of with Nordost cables.
Because this turntable is not your typical design, the distributor in the US, Audioquest, strongly suggests that the dealer set up this turntable. In my system, I had Dr. Vinyl come out and set the table up, and I'm glad he did. He knows a couple of tricks and ideas on how to optimize the table that I would not have known, since this is my first experience with this table. Before anybody thinks that I got special treatment because I'm doing a review of this table for the Absolute Sounds YouTube channel, the dealer that you purchase this table from will come out and set this table up if you so desire. Now I'm going to show you how to play a record on this unusually designed turntable. So, got my record already on the platter, as you can see. Now the first thing you do is turn on the speed controller. I'm playing a 33 1/3 record, so I'll hit this button there, and you see the display says 33, and now the motor's on and it's running, but if you look at the video, you don't see the platter moving. And that's because this is a very low torque motor, so you have to give the motor and the platter an assist. So what you do is you put your hands at 9 3 on the platter, and then you give it a good spin. Now the platter is actually spinning faster than 33 1/3 right now, so what you essentially have to do before you can actually start listening to the record is wait for the platter to slow to 33, and only way to do that is basically just as to observe the platter and see when it slows down but gets to a point where it stays stable in its rotation. And that's what it looks like now, so I can actually go ahead and play a record. So basically, I keep my tone arm lever lifted at its highest position. I tend to grab the tone arm right here, right behind the head shell. This is kind of a piece of rubber or something that's a little more grippy than the actual arm tube. Then I move the arm over to the lead-in groove and then drop the cueing lever, and now you're playing a record. Now, in order to stop playing a record, again, lift the cueing lever on the tone arm, and then what I like to do is I like to grab it back here, not up here, and so I don't damage the record or touch the record or risk pushing the arm down and doing damage to the stylus and cantilever. So I just slide the arm over to its furthest position to get it out of the way. And then in order to stop the platter from spinning, just like you started up, basically you take your 2 hands, grab the sides of the platter, and it stops the platter from spinning. Now, that's one of the reasons they have this little rubber piece between the platter and the plinth down here, is to add a little drag to help keep the platter stability a little better. But the thing is, right now, even though the platter's not spinning, the motor's still running. If you touch the motor here, you can feel the vibration of the motor trying to spin the platter. So you have to be cognizant of that fact when you stop playing records, you know, when you're done listening, you want to make sure you hit this button here on the speed controller to physically turn off the motor, else the motor will continuously run until you do that. There have been a couple of times when I've done that and gone away and after listening and realized that the motor was still spinning a couple of hours later. I don't know if that'll do damage to the motor, but you want to make sure that you turn that motor off. So you have to be aware of that the motor could still be running even though you're not playing records. The first thing I listen to in a turntable is how quiet mechanically that table is, and this table is very quiet. I don't hear any motor rumble or noise from the mechanical bits of this turntable. When I do turn up the volume all the way, all I hear is a bit of hiss from the phono stage, and that's about it. Because the noise floor on this table is so low, it retrieves more low-level detail than I've ever heard from a table before. I hear more pre-echo on LPs on this table than I've ever heard from any table that I've ever had in my system. I took a listen to the mobile fidelity one-step of Michael Jackson's Thriller. You can clearly hear the individual pieces that make up the sonic quilt on songs like Billie Jean and PYT. Each instrument is clearly heard in the soundstage and its own individual space. The one area I think this album lacks is low end. It doesn't have the power or extension that I've heard on other pressings of this album. In contrast to Thriller, I listened to Romantic Warrior from Return to Forever. On the song Romantic Warrior, you get this one big wall of sound as each musician tries to outdo each other in the crescendo of that song. But on this album, I do get the power and extension in the bass that I don't hear on Thriller. I took a listen to my copy of Mobile Fidelity's version of Dark Side of the Moon. Specifically, I want to hear how this turntable handles the surround sound effects on that album. On the song On the Run, you can clearly hear the sound effect of the runner running back and forth from one side of the soundstage to the other beyond each speaker. And also you can hear the runner sometimes running in a circle behind you, so you just don't hear left to right, you hear front to back, left to right, just in a kind of a oval or a circle pattern. On the song Time, you can hear the clock bells and chimes above your head, behind your head, in front of you, all over the soundstage. On the album Rufus Reed Presents Kalen Cardello, you can hear the bass in the far right channel just inside the right speaker. You hear the piano in the far left channel just inside the left speaker. Both of these instruments are in their own individual spaces, and you can hear the richness of the piano along with the subtle nuances and texture of the bass. For an album that's sourced from a digital file, I find the sonics and the music of this album quite compelling. I listened to the song Black Coffee by Ella Fitzgerald from the album Ella Sings Songs from Let No Man Write My Epitaph. This track, as in the rest of the album, is just Ella and a piano, and you can hear the emotion in her voice as she sings about a bad relationship. On this song, you can hear Ella Fitzgerald slightly to the front right side of the piano. The piano sounds almost ethereal, but you get a great sense of space of the recording studio, and you hear lots of natural reverb in that space. At $15,000, this is not an inexpensive product. The unconventional design might put some people off, but make no mistake, this is a great sounding turntable, and I think is very competitive in this price range. As always, thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, please check out the Absolute Sound magazine, going strong after more than half a century of publication.